Well, welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. We got some people all the way on the other side of the country, people in other countries joining us today, which is exciting. So, we want to welcome you to Tips for Professional Success in a Pandemic World. My name is Margie Lee, and I am the Vice President for Graduate Alumni and Professional Affairs with Theta Design Multicultural Sorority Incorporated. I have heard from really just different networks that I have connected throughout my life that people are really trying to find what can I do in what feels like a stalled time, right? There isn't a lot that we can do in person, but what can we do in a virtual space, and can we do to advance our careers right now? So I am very, very pleased and happy to invite our soror, Zeinab Kahera, who has actually helped me with my resume before I moved to a higher position. Thank you, Ms. Zeinab. She's a career specialist. And then her beautiful and equally talented sister, Amirah Kahera, who is from Amirah K Consulting. So they are going to take the microphone away and share with us the tips for professional success in a pandemic world. I turn it over to you, ladies.
Thank you. That was such a beautiful transition. Thank you, Margie. So hi, everybody. My name is Zeinab, and this is my sister.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amirah.
And thank you for joining us this Saturday afternoon, morning, if you're on the West Coast. I am one of those people who are in another country, and it's really cold and miserable outside, so I'm at the beach right now. Before we started the call, I was like simulating jumping into the water because I really wish I could do that, but that's okay. So yes, today we're going to be talking about tips for professional success in a pandemic world, as Margie stated. And the focus for today is more about reflection and thought, right? So a lot of times with these types of presentations, it will be very structured and focused on strategy and what's the practical thing to do, and we're going to be talking about those things, but we also want to create a space for you all to think about where you are right now and how you can utilize the information today moving forward. So we have one request, which is if you can maybe get like a pen or a paper, or if you want to use your phone, just something that you can trot down some notes, because we will be doing some reflective activities, and we want you guys to be able to trot down your thoughts and all of that. Sounds good? Thumbs up? Thumbs up.
Awesome.
Okay, so let's start off talking about where we are right now, which is we are in, well, really a middle of the pandemic. I mean, a lot of places, unfortunately, right now are seeing some spikes after coming out of the holiday season, and it's been a lot to carry, And in the last year, we've experienced some fear. Some people have lost hope because of just the things that have happened in the last year. There's been significant job loss for a lot of individuals. And then a lot of us are dealing with just trauma from either experiencing firsthand or seeing, other people experience loss, of life. A lot of people have lost family members in the last year, and they're losing people every day. So when we're thinking about our professional career, it's important to acknowledge these things because these are a part of our journey right now, and our journey is a significant part of our professional career. So we just wanted to kind of just state it and acknowledge it. And as we get into the presentation, we'll talk specifically about how to kind of navigate these things. So yeah, Amirah.
Awesome. Thank you, Zainab. So getting a little bit deeper into our discussion today, we're going to cover 4 areas between seeking clarity and getting curious, what it means to keep on your trajectory while also being open, maximizing your employable skills, and then navigating and networking online. And I think first step, Zainab is going to talk about seeking clarity and getting curious and really digging into what does that actually mean.
Okay, great. Thank you. So when we start on our career journey, or we're assessing where we are right now, one of the things that I recommend to my clients is taking a moment to, or starting a path of clarity and curiosity. The curiosity, I don't know if anybody is a follower of Brene Brown, but she's a big advocate of asking questions and exploring. I see your heart, Rebecca. So that's kind of where this is rooted in, is what do we gain when we start asking questions? So the what is understanding the outcome that I am seeking in my professional career, right? Getting clear about that. And then also exploring what I have learned about myself up until today that makes an impact on my career journey. The importance about today is that we are evolutionary beings. So the things that are important, that are a priority in our lives right now, may not be the priority for the future. So you can make decisions that will help you prepare for the future, but it's okay to be focused on the present as well. The why is, you can't, or the reason why we do this is, you can't fully explore where you are going until you understand where you are now, right? And also, reflecting on where you've been, your past, but understanding that all of that attributes to who you are right now. So the present is important. And then lastly, the why we do this, it's about creating internal space. So again, with my clients, I really try to have conversations about how they view themselves within the universe, right? This is a spiritual experience. And a lot of times we seek things and we'll verbalize it, but we don't intentionally or spiritually set an intention for that thing to manifest in our lives. So when you start on this process of clarity and curiosity, you're creating space for that to happen. You're creating space for those possibilities to occur, right? And the how. So how do we do this? Start exploring and asking questions. Are my needs currently being met in terms of my job, my career? Does my career align with what I value? Alignment is it's fulfilling me mentally, spiritually, and physically. Physically can literally be, am I working the hours that I want? Am I working in the physical space that I want? And then start with where you are right now and understand that as you evolve, so will your needs and values. So let's do some reflection. So for anybody that joined in after the beginning, we're going to be asking some reflection questions, and then later on we'll circle back and we'll talk about it. So the first set of reflection questions that I have for you all is, what do I need to have a career that aligns with me mentally, emotionally, and physically? And what would it do for me to have this career alignment? And I forgot to mention, I'm going to give you guys about 90 seconds to just kind of trot some thoughts down, okay? So we're going to start now. Have a moment of silence. And as you're writing, if there's anything else that's coming up for you in these questions, write them down, because that's part of your exploration and your curiosity journey. We have about 30 more seconds. Okay. Next, Amirah.
Awesome. Thank you, Zainab. That moment of silence was really helpful. And even as someone who works in a space where I consult and work with nonprofit organizations or public health based businesses, it's helpful to still take a moment and just pause and
Mhm.
reflect. So thank you for that time. So
You're
speaking
welcome.
of, what career space we're into and thinking about what aligns, some of you may have thought about, well, what about where I am now? I may like the field that I'm in, or maybe I'm in a period of stagnation. So really, I wanted to talk to you all about keeping on your trajectory, but being open. So you're probably wondering, okay, that's a little bit of a contradiction. What does that really mean? And so I define it as reimagining your dream. You may have had positive feelings, values, or ideas associated with a career or industry that you set upon. But knowing that you don't have to sacrifice those feelings you once associated with your vision, but perhaps let go of the key, structured how of how this may come about because things have changed so much due to the pandemic and plenty of industries have shifted. Businesses have closed, but the joy that you may have experienced in your industry or in your job or your occupation, that can still be revitalized. And continuing on with what Zainab mentioned earlier, we're constantly evolving, so being open. And you might be wondering, why should I do this? And I think it just goes back to our evolution. You could be happy in a completely different industry than you planned pre-pandemic, so be open to new fields, be willing to switch industries. Allow yourself to excel in areas that you did not expect and take off those limitations. Forget, people who say, I'm too old or I'm too young or I don't know enough or I know too little about this or, I maybe I'd have to move or maybe I would have to do something different. That's okay. You as long as you're here, you have another chance, another opportunity to stretch yourself and try out a new space. And even if that means it's temporary or it's something to help boost your skill set, be open to it. And one of the ways that we do that is to assess our essential values. And that builds a little bit upon our reflection exercise earlier when we asked, what do you need to be aligned in your career? And some of the things that may have come up may have been those essential values. Sometimes when we enter the working space, we are just going into it with a mindset of, I need to work, I need to get money, I just need to get settled and get a job. And that's totally fine. Leave room for yourself alongside that to also say, what do I value in this space? And to reclaim and take back your time and your rights to knowing that you can be happy and enjoy the place that you work in. You deserve that. You have that right. Even though we're socialized to just work and work and work, we do have a right to be happy in the spaces that we are putting energy into. And that they also should be nurturing us in some way as well. And then I visualize how you want to feel in your working space or the environment. And this does not mean immediately, you snap your fingers and that place or that environment or space will appear, but that you at least have a clear vision. And when you have a clear vision, then you can make clear steps. And also keep an eye open for some of the larger industries. So, as I mentioned lightly earlier, I come from a public health background, and public health industry overall has expanded greatly, and the spotlight has been on it because of the pandemic. But it's an industry that's always around, and coming from that space, I think that there are some opportunities in industries that are either here or going to expand because of the pandemic. Those include emergency preparedness, disease prevention, or anything public health or related, as well as community resilience, community healing, or mental health or mental wellness related. And considering that, as Zainab mentioned earlier, we're dealing with so much loss, not just in job loss, but loss of community connections and family members or friends. There is a wealth of need of support in those spaces and in those fields. And you might find something adjacent. You might start in a volunteer space and it may grow to something more. Maybe I was reading this morning on CNN about one woman who unfortunately lost her partner during the pandemic. And she decided to reach out to some friends on Facebook, and she ended up creating a group, a wellness group, for women who have lost their partners during the pandemic. So it wasn't something that she sought out to create to gain capital, but she just said, this is a need that I realize that I have. My essential value is connectivity in time of grief. And it ended up being a space where she connected with other people, and it has grown and continues to grow. So those are some thoughts on keeping your trajectory, but being open to possibilities, even in bleak times. So that brings us to our reflection. And for this reflection, I just want us to, ask the question, if I were open to it, what industry or occupation would I consider switching to? Get excited, get flexible, take yourself back to that day at school, or maybe you had a career day and they're like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And just go for it. There are no right or wrong answers, just what comes up for you. And as we did earlier, you have 90 seconds, but by all means, continue to reflect on these questions after our session today.
And I actually had started the timer, so now you're down to just 60. Sorry.
Whoops.
It's okay. I was premature. And I just want to add into this question as well. If you feel comfortable in your industry right now or your occupation, how would you like to evolve that? All right, 10 more seconds. Okay, so moving on, I want to talk about now from a more strategic standpoint. Don't go off timer. From a more strategic standpoint, some of the practical things that you can do when you're trying to develop your professional career, regardless of where you are right now. And this is about maximizing your employable skills. So what does that include? Or what is that? It's about identifying your skills and expertise. So one of the things that I encounter a lot when I am doing resumes is individuals who really don't understand or comprehend or are aware of the value that they offer to their company or their organization. Or if they're an entrepreneur, what is it that the value that they have to offer, right? And so this is important because this allows you to really seek that information, okay? So employable skills are job readiness skills. So they can include your ability to communicate, how you work with a team, how well are you at thinking critically. And so why do we want to do this? You need to be aware of the skills so that you can honor and affirm the value that you bring to your organization, okay? So it's not just about being able to spurt out that I'm really good at this. It's about really intentionally understanding for yourself what your value is, right? And then honoring that. This is a great thing, not just when it comes to our jobs, but just how we are as whole individuals. We all have something that we offer, right? And so sometimes in this world, we can become disconnected from that. So this activity actually allows you to reconnect with who you are as a whole person. So how do we do this? Learn how your employable skills apply to your specific job or industry, right? And then boost your current skills and learn more skills. So let's talk about that a little bit. When it comes to the employable skills, you want to apply it to the job that you're in, that you're currently working in, or the industry that you're in. So an example would be is like, if I'm an engineer, how well do I communicate when I'm managing a project? What ways do I use communication to properly manage my project? Or if I'm leading a team, what structure do I create with my team so that it's efficient? That's the employable skills. And companies are looking for that more because that's more transferable than having somebody who knows a specific hard skill, like something that they learned in school. Okay. There's a typo, I apologize. That should be may not require a paid formal education when you're learning more skills. So there's a lot of free resources out there, and we're gonna provide a couple at the end. But LinkedIn, YouTube, Coursera, Skillshare are some of the options. With Skillshare and Coursera, I believe that they'll offer like free trials, and there's a lot of influencers. They will give you like a code where you can save money on these websites. The reason why no, that's not what I'm trying to say. What I wanted to say is that I understand that we live in an information age and there's a lot of information out there and it can get overwhelming and you're not sure how to navigate it, right? So I want to acknowledge that. However, if you get intentional about specific things that you're trying to learn, it helps you to be able to navigate that space. And start small. Don't add a huge list of things that you're trying to learn because that's going to overwhelm you. Start small and then build from there, okay? Also, you can use any free resources that your job provides, any free training. Don't look at it as specifically as something that you're learning to do for your company. Look at it as something that you're learning that you can take away with you if you decide to leave, okay? And then just start with 5 to 10 minutes today, or maybe a couple of hours a week. So when I decided I wanted to be a career specialist, I had a conglomerate of skills that I kind of threw together. So I had a master's degree in counseling, working with college age students, so millennials and Gen Zers. I also had professional experience as a human resource manager, and I had done recruiting, and I had hired I don't even know how many people. So I looked at all of those skills and I said, I want to use this to help people. But I didn't necessarily have as much of a formal training to be a career specialist. So I just started reading. I bought a bunch of books. I started watching videos online. I started listening to podcasts, and then I just started helping people. And I think, Margie, you were one of the people that was lucky enough for me to help you for free. I started helping people for free, and that allowed me to really, strengthen my muscle and expand my skills. So, and I just started with maybe a couple of hours a week. I started doing that. Okay. Afterwards, when it's all said and done, once you start kind of exploring and working on your skills, then you can evaluate if it will require further education that you'll have to pay for. But I don't want you to walk in thinking, oh, I'm going to have to go get another degree in this and that. There's too much information available to us that we have for free, that before we need to decide if we need to, that we should utilize before we decide if we need to add another blasted student loan that we're hoping that Biden will forgive. Prayers up for that. Okay, so let's talk about in this next reflection. We're only going to take probably 60 seconds for this, just for the sake of time. So the questions for this is, what am I good at that I genuinely enjoy doing? That part is important because we don't want to just focus on what other people have told us to do that we're good at. What do I enjoy doing? Okay. How do I add value and make an impact? So regardless of the space that you're in, what are the things that you feel that you add value, that you bring to the table? And then the last question is, what does it do for me when I'm able to use my expertise for change? So we'll take 60 seconds. Okay. Amirah.
Awesome. So to round us out, our fourth focus or tip is navigating and networking online. And pretty much by you all being here today, either watching this live or watching the recording, you are doing and executing just that. And so it's utilizing your professional networks online in place of traditional networking events in person. So, when we were outside, many months and moons ago, we would go to networking events or cocktail hours or seminars in person, conferences, you name it, organizational gatherings where we had opportunities to organically network and connect with people. And so, because we have moved to a more virtual or digital world due to the pandemic, we're online a lot more. And, plenty of us have dealt with that Zoom fatigue or that digital fatigue and needing a break. And so, it's like, do I need to connect with people again? But the reason why I encourage us to utilize our professional networks online is because it's not just about reaching that broad audience or connecting with people and finding out what career opportunities or job openings are available, but it's also about continuing to cultivate healthy connections and relationships with people. We do need to see people, especially during this time, when we are physically distant from each other. And although the intention and focus may be, let me talk about what I'm doing here or here, you're also fulfilling that need. So it serves a dual purpose. And then, deeply, when it comes to your career, it's an opportunity for you to explore industry changes or to keep track of different things that have happened in industry or career. And so, simply how is consider following hashtags on LinkedIn. I think that that is one underused tip when it comes to looking at posts online. Many a time we'll spend a lot of time doom scrolling on Facebook or Twitter, but if we just took back 5 minutes of that scrolling, or just spent 5 minutes, have your scrolling because we do need those outlets, and then take 5 minutes, as Zainab shared earlier, and scroll link on LinkedIn, look at some of the hashtags related to an industry that you might be in or interested in, or even on Twitter as well. And then think about joining more professional groups on Facebook. So, for those watching, you may be a member of Theta Nu Xi, or you might be someone who is not a member of Theta Nu Xi, like myself, but you can still find connectivity in going into different spaces and professional groups, meeting people, finding out what it is that they do, and finding out how you can connect with them. Other professional groups also post seminars for free. There's plenty of seminars online, and that's another way to increase your education or knowledge about a specific job or industry without having to go back to school. I just want to continue to reiterate, there's so much free information online, and really, when we look at the situation or the challenge of loans and going back to school, and post grads, there's a whole wave of graduates who completed school in 2020, and many of them have not been able to get a job, but they bring a plethora of skills and a degree. And so it really comes down to two factors. One, it's not just the degree, but as Zainab mentioned, how you can apply and utilize those job readiness skills, how people experience you at work. And then two, also because we're in a pandemic and some things are out of our control. So these tips overall are about us just doing the best that we can with what we have and where we are, and meeting ourselves where we are. So that is my last tip on navigating and networking.
Thank you, Amirah. Okay. So work. There we go. So just to kind of wrap up, as we were going through the presentation, I thought of some additional things that I wanted to just kind of mention to you all. So the first one is that understand the role that fear and uncertainty plays in this process. So when I look at one of the things that makes me, that drives me to help people with their careers is because it is such a significant part of who we are and how we function on a day-to-day basis, right? And so just like the other things that we experience in life, whether it's with our partners or our children or just our family members, there's going to be a real level of fear or uncertainty that we will have to encounter, regularly at times. And so we want to understand for ourselves how that fear manifests, so that we can better address it when we encounter it. So this experience is not a comfortable one, especially when you are starting off, right? Learn how to connect with your journey and how fear is manifesting in it, okay? What are some of the barriers that you're dealing with? A good book that has helped me with that is called The Big Leap. It's by Gay Hendricks. Very good book. He talks about our barriers to our upper limit, to our zone of genius. Are you a priority in your decision-making process? This is very important because we often neglect ourselves for the sake of others, not realizing that space does exist for us to fulfill our needs and support those around us who matter. This is another big one. And I'll share just a story for myself. With my mother, I saw how talented she was. I saw what she could offer to the world, but I also saw her neglect herself a lot. And when we would talk about it, I would say, Mommy, why don't you, do this? You could do this for your business, so on and so forth. And she would always say to us, well, I just want to make sure you guys are okay. And my response would always be, I will be okay if you're okay. And that's really what it's about, that when we take care of ourselves, we inadvertently are helping the people around us as well, because we are able to be our best selves, okay? So are you a priority in your decision-making process? And then lastly, be prepared to wait. Decision-making about your career is an ongoing process, not an event, okay? You may not have the answer right away, but by asking and exploring, you create the space for the answers to come. And we talked about creating space earlier, okay? All righty, so we are gonna jump into the question section. I'm just gonna jump ahead to the end real quick so that we can dedicate all of our time to the questions. We have prepared some resources for you all. To access them, all you have to do is go to my website, zeinabkahera.com/resources, and there's a few links on there. One of them that I really love is the needs and values activity. And this activity really changed my life because it allowed me to get clear about what are the things that I need for myself, for my career. And so now when I make decisions, I'm always thinking about those specific needs, okay? And then we have Margie's information, TNX VP Gap Affairs at gmail.com, and then Amirah's information, and then mine. And I'll go back to this when we're finished, okay? So questions, and I'm gonna close out the screen share so we can see everybody's faces.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, Margie. And then also, actually, before we go to questions, can we circle back to the reflection part? Actually, maybe we should go back to the screen share so you all can see. I jumped ahead of myself. I apologize.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Hi,
we have
everybody
time.
that joined us. Hi, Vanessa. Okay. So the first reflections were clarity and curious. Does anybody want to share anything that came up for them in that? Feel free
Mine's
to.
hard. I think mine would be kind of hard because it's not something that you can just look for a career and then it works. But one of the things that I need for the kind of mental and emotional part is I need to have a supportive work environment with colleagues who I don't have to be best friends with, but I need to feel like we have each other's back and we, just connect. Um, I've been in both spots where I've had a working environment that was really positive, and then I've been in a working environment that's not, which is kind of where I'm at now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think that's a common thing. People want to feel supported and safe in their work environment, right? That's a very common thing. Thank you for sharing that, Rebecca. Anybody else have something that came up for them that they want to share? Okay. Let's move on to the next one. So industry. If you're thinking about switching industry or occupation, where are you looking at? What are some of the things that you're exploring?
I can go. Hey, this is Ruthie. So I thought about this a lot. So it was pretty easy to just jot them down. So I'm in tech, but I was in health analytics consulting, but I decided that I didn't want to be in that industry, but I like tech. So I was thinking tech, but in maybe science or research, like things that I'm interested in that maybe I can't be like a research scientist, but like I can help them build something tech, trying to think of it that way.
Mm-hmm. Very good. And can I ask you just a quick follow-up? Have you, because we're going to get to the skills, but have you thought about how you can transition what you've done in your previous industry into this new industry that you want to go into?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been doing a lot of research. I use like all the resources that you pretty much listed. I've been working on like freelance projects, so trying to set up my own website for employers to see different capabilities that I can do, and then making sure the topics are broad enough to reach multiple industries I'm interested in, but specific enough that they can see my value. So I've been doing this for like 6 months, actually. For those of you who are in the West who are at regional conference, I did a session on like what I learned in the last 6 months. So seeing all of this validates some of the stuff I've been doing. So that feels good.
Awesome.
That's good. That's good. And I appreciate you sharing your journey, because I think a lot of times we want to do that, but we're so afraid and we talk ourselves out of it. And so when we are able to have conversations like this, it reinforces that, no, you know what, this is the right path for me. I'm going to do this. So thank you for sharing that with me.
Of course.
Okay, let's talk about employable skills, right? So what am I good at that I genuinely enjoy doing? How do I add value and make impact? How do I use my expertise for change? Can I call somebody out? Did she leave us? She's here. Can I call it Vianessa? Because you have a lot to share. If you can, I don't know. I think she just went blank. Did she go blank? Okay, we might have lost her. Okay, does anybody want to share anything about this section that they were able to reflect about themselves, the value and the impact that they bring? You're back. Vianessa, I had called you out because I wanted you to share. But Sonia just unmuted, so when she's done, you can share, Vianessa. Go ahead, Sonia.
Hi, thank you so much. This presentation is really, really helpful, and it's I've been working, so I'm in supply chain. I've been working in supply chain since I graduated in college, and so I went into supply chain because it was something that I was interested in at the time, and I thought that it would be a great career to kind of sustain me as I found more of what my passion was, because as a 20-year-old, I just never knew what that was. As I'm getting more into the supply chain career now, I'm and I like it. I'm good at it. I'm ticking off all the boxes, but I've noticed that my interest has been and continues to be things surrounding like sociology and understanding how organizations work and people work. And that's kind of where I'm tying into what I'm good at. So I know that, and I've been told in the past that I'm a pretty good public speaker, and I'm good at speaking to people in presentations or communicating both verbally or in written formats. So it's where I'm trying to change and make an impact is by addressing those skills that I have in a way that I can maybe become some sort of consulting in businesses. And I guess I'm just kind of lost. And your workshop today has been really helpful because it's kind of some of the same questions that I've been addressing for myself. And I'm working at home, and I have my desk with, my day-to-day stuff, but then I have a little notepad on the side where I'm asking myself these questions. I have the Ikigai book, and I'm trying to to figure myself out still,
Good.
go in that direction.
But you've already created the space. So that's a huge step. A lot of people struggle to get started. So you should recognize yourself for that you've created the space for it to happen.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Okay, Venus, so the reason why I wanted to call you out is because for as long as I've known you, you've always been somebody that I admired in terms of utilizing your resources and your network to create opportunities for you. So I just wanted you to share kind of just a little bit of that in terms of just how you use your expertise and skills to, you know, build a career for yourself.
All right. Yeah, sorry about earlier. My internet connection has been going in and out, so hopefully I won't freeze up now.
No problem.
So it's been interesting. I think let's see, where do I even begin? I think I've just always been, for lack of a better word, I think it has a bad stigma to it, but I'm very opportunistic, and I mean that in a positive way. Like I don't screw people over. That's not what I do. I actually really enjoy helping people.
Yes.
Which, you know, I enjoy helping people within Theta Nu Xi. I also volunteer in other organizations. Like I genuinely enjoy helping people, and I see the opportunity in not just to like build myself up in helping people, but I just consider myself an opportunistic person. So sometimes I see something and I'm just like, I'm going to run with this because it makes me feel good, or it inspires an idea, or inspires a feeling, or I see that it inspires something in somebody else. That's something that really motivates me. So I've always kept an open mind, and I have a very non-traditional career track. I have a very non-linear career track, which is also, I think, something that's very individual, because there's people that need certain type of structure, that need certain type of reassurances. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, I obviously like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You need to have your needs met. You need to feel safe. You have to have a roof over your head. And within that, you know, each of us, based on our personalities, kind of have flexibility. I have a lot of flexibility. Like I'll be like, I'm also very hard-headed. So I'll be like, you know, I would rather struggle for a while and build something. But, you know, I know that's because I can. You know, I've been able to fall back on my parents, which is a point of privilege, you know, so I'm very aware of that as well. But all that being said, I work in the creative industry. I've had a split career. I work in entertainment, and I've always worked as a writer. So for me, I don't see, for a long time, I struggled, especially when I lived in Los Angeles. When you work in entertainment, when you're a performer, you get a lot of like, well, you can't work full time, like you're an actor, and you get that from all sides. Like you like a couple of years ago, there was like this big, you know, like hubbub about this famous television actor from the 70s who was working at Trader Joe's, and it's like,
Yes.
we're you know, acting is a career, but it's a freelance career. There's no longevity, and sometimes contracts are for 1 week, 1 day, 3 months, and we need survival jobs. And for me, my survival job was always writing. And writing is also a very unstable career. So I had 2 very unstable freelance careers. So it more so became like an evolution, like a survival mechanism. You know, when you're constantly freelancing, and that was a choice. I'm not complaining. I got into freelancing by choice. I did the corporate, you know, full-time office thing at first, and it just didn't fit me. I don't like having that kind of fixed structure. I can't think in that kind of fixed structure. I'm very much an introvert, which people don't believe me when I say it, but I'm very much an introvert. So I can't be in an office space surrounded by people, because it gives me anxiety and I can't get my work done. So I was fortunate to recognize that in myself very early on. And it was, you know, recognizing opportunity is just a survival mechanism for me. It's just the way my brain works. And so yeah, so it was always like, I always saw the correlation, the overlap between working as an actor and working as a writer. And I went from working in PR to writing blogs, to writing for travel magazines, to writing scripts, you know. So it was just basically the things that I had learned over the years, kind of combined them all into one. And ultimately, thank you. But ultimately now, I'm starting a new job on Monday with Facebook, which is like the ultimate, like unexpected career turn ever. But it's a writing job. you know? So here we are again. I haven't worked for a corporate structure in years, but I am hired as a freelancer. So technically I still have my freedom to maintain my schedule as long as I complete my work, you know, every week, 40 hours, whatever, you know, within certain flexible terms, because obviously there are some times where I do need to be available during business hours. But, you know, I've done this for so long. At first it was like a little bit of kind of imposter syndrome, like, oh my God, what am I getting myself into? But it's like, well, you know, I've been writing and working as a creative at this point for 15 years. Like, you know, it makes sense that this would be the next evolution for me in my career. So I think that was a mental hurdle for me recently, was like, Facebook, like, what am I doing? Does this make sense? I'm like, of course it makes sense. It's writing, and it's writing specifically to help people. I'm working on a program that helps entrepreneurs develop their businesses and develop skills. So it's even in line with the volunteer work that I used to do, you know, so it's a bit serendipitous. I feel very lucky that it happened. But I think it's also like that constant, that years of kind of sticking to what I like and what I know, and kind of you know, just that survival mode. And then finally I'm at a job where I don't have to be in survival mode. I'll be able to actually live comfortably after very many years of struggling.
Right. And the struggle wasn't an Thank you so much for sharing that. You know, there are a couple things that, and then we'll get to the questions, I just wanted to highlight that you talked about, directly, indirectly, identifying what it is that you needed for yourself, right? So you were clear that being in certain spaces just didn't work for you. So you honored that need by creating the space that did, right? And then understanding that this is a process, so there's going to be times where you're going to have barriers, including fear, imposter syndrome, right? So because you have invested in your self-awareness, you were able to address those feelings when they came up and I say walk along with them, because they don't go away, they're still there, but you can just kind of be like, okay, go shut up for a second, let me do what I got to do. So that's another great testimony that I appreciate you sharing, you know. And then also just I don't know if I said this already, but just creating the space for this opportunity to come. It actually started a while ago, right? With all of the different things that you were doing. And then eventually it has accumulated to you having this role that you are now. So that's a great journey. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting this. This has been wonderful.
Thank you. Okay, Margie, hit us with the Q&A.
Awesome. I'll just give a shout out to Vanessa. She did put her link in the chat if you want to look up writings and connect with her. We may have to do a separate writing type of workshop with Vanessa later. We'll put a pin on that. But a couple of questions that came up in the chat. One was about if you can talk about changing careers, right?
Okay.
And doesn't that mean less money? Like if I move and I change careers, do I have to start at the bottom level and work my way up, and it automatically equals a pay cut? Break that down for us a little bit.
Sure. So, okay, it really depends on what industry that you're moving to, right? It also depends on your employable skills. You don't necessarily have to start over, but I always recommend that you prepare yourself for that you may have to start over in terms of maybe earning less money. A lot of times though, I find that people feel that they have to earn less because they don't understand the value that they bring to the table.
Yes.
So they're walking in thinking, well, I haven't been doing this for X, Y, and Z years. I don't really have that much under me, so they're not going to pay me a lot of money. That's not true. It's not true. If you are able to, this is why the employable skills are so important. If you are able to articulate and demonstrate how, with what you have right now, the problem you can solve for that company, right? Because people are hiring because there's a problem they need to fix, right? You can tell them how you can solve that problem, then they may hire you because they feel like, okay, she has or they have enough value that I don't really care that they don't have X, Y, and Z years of experience. Now, that will depend on the industry, because obviously if you want to be like, I don't know, some type of physician, they're not going to be like, well, you got a lot of kids, so you're going to be a pediatrician now, right? But honestly, a lot of the jobs that we're in now are not, most people are not in really very tech heavy type jobs that require a lot of formal education. Even for the tech heavy jobs, there's so many resources out there. So there's a path to it. So the short end is, yes, there may be a chance that you're going to take a pay cut, right? But the long answer is prepare yourself for it, and then also really invest your time in understanding what value and contribution you make, and walk forward with that instead of this idea that you're going to be starting over completely.
Mm-hmm.
Did I articulate myself well? Okay,
so.
I'm a words of affirmation person, so I need to be affirmed.
You're affirmed. Mimi
Yeah.
has something to add, I think. Go ahead.
Yes, one, to affirm what you said, and two, to say, from my own experience in my career, I started out, or I didn't start out, but one of the careers I had earlier was community organizing and working for nonprofits. And so that was its own adventure. And I decided, okay, actually, I want to do consulting, and taking in all of the jobs and skill sets that I had before that point. And so, on the note of preparing, I think there's sometimes there's energy or push to say, just go for it, just quit your job and start now. Don't do that. Do not do that. Save if you can, even a few dollars here and there. Start doing some fun projects on the side. The sagacious advice of volunteering, or networking is important. It still stands today. Even if you're going into a space of entrepreneurship, I think that that's important. I just wanted to reiterate that, because sometimes when we're given like the inspiring life advice, it's like, just take the leap. Take the leap in here. You have to start internally, and then externally you will see those changes, those shifts, and those opportunities.
Yeah, don't jump into the ocean that's behind me right now, the fake ocean.
Yeah, no,
One thing I wanted to add to that too is that we have access to so many online communities that, I mean, for every topic under the moon, right? So engage in those communities and see if you can learn from those individuals. And that is another way for you to kind of like network and build up your I guess you could say your expertise, right? So we don't have to go the traditional route. I'm so glad Vanessa spoke. We do not have to go the traditional route. I'm going to go on a rant. I am so over this capitalist world that we live in. We are conditioned to think that we have to work ourselves to death to be successful, and that we have to climb the ladder to be successful. And a lot of that is built around getting people to put out an excess of output so they can make more money. Mm-hmm. We do not have to be victims of that. If that whole Reddit stock exchange situation taught me anything, it was like, we have power, okay? And the way that they responded lets you know how they view us. We're numbers on a piece of paper. We don't have to live our lives that way. I'm done. Next question.
Yes.
Go ahead, Mimi. No,
I was just going to say, sacrificing yourself, do not let that be the mood for 2021. 2020 tried to take us out, so don't you don't have to subscribe to that channel anymore.
Oh, ending that subscription, honey.
I love it. Don't subscribe. All right. So I'll take one more question that came up about job longevity. And this might be sort of a follow-up to the last question, but some positions in a career path may be like 1 to 3 years, and somebody has been working at a position for 3 years. Should they switch careers or move over? Is that going to negatively affect their
oh, I see the question.
I guess their employable skills, or how they transfer over to that other career path.
They've been there. Ideally, you don't want to leave somewhere within less than a year. But And this topic came up in our Data and Design networking group about the gaps. And Vanessa, you were talking about that in the live that you guys did on Friday, right? So here's the thing about that. One, we live in a time where a lot of companies are aware that people are not going to be there more than maybe like 2 to 3 years. Okay. And then two, it's not about the one occurrence, it's about a trend. If you have a trend of staying at a job for 6 months or only staying there for 12 months, that is a bit more of a red flag than if you stayed somewhere for, let's say, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and then the next job you were only there for 6 months. So it's about being able to speak to why that occurrence happened and not that it actually happened. Right? Because the people who are hiring us are also people who are living their lives, and stuff happens. So being at your company, you said you worry about leaving my job because I'm only a year. Honey, you way past 3 years.
Yeah, you paid your dues.
I legit have not stayed anywhere more than like 2 years. Part of it was under my control, and the other part of it was not. But 3 years, you're good. If you had said like 3 months, I would have been like, but 3 years.
Well, because my whole resume is like 2 years here, 1 year there, 1 year there, 2 years. And so, yeah, that's why. But yeah, I
But
get
again, remember, Rebecca, that it's accumulation of everything that you've gained and you've earned in those years. What have you learned about yourself? What is the value that you can bring to the table? What you can contribute? Mm-hmm. So we don't have to worry so much about, the fact that it was a year here or 2 years. You don't. I literally have, like I said, I've only stayed at a company maybe a couple of years. I have a 3-year unemployment gap, school here, this there, so, and I was able to get a job. Why? Because I sold the hell out of myself, honey. So.
Exactly. Job loyalty has shifted over the past 50, 60 years. Folks aren't as loyal to the same company as they were before. Mm-hmm. So I think it's totally okay to shift, to change, to grow, to expand. Mm-hmm. All of it is working in your favor in
your favor. That's right. It's all working in your favor. And it's contributing to who you are as a whole person. Yeah. Right? We really need to allow ourselves to erase these stereotypes of images that we've been taught or conditioned to believe that we need to be. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest things that I tell my clients is that you are your first client. So you do what serves you, what aligns with you, what you need. And then not only, the reason that you do that is because you will bring people to you who align with who you are, because they're meeting you where you are. And then the other reason why you do it is because obviously it serves you in the best capacity that it should.
Excellent. Well, as we wrap up, I'm going to ask Zeinab if you can share your screen again to the resources page. And I will put a couple of plugs in here. So Zeinab had mentioned it while she was speaking, but I actually did go to her, true story, to update my resume before I moved up in my organization. So that was definitely beneficial. And I would encourage others here to connect with our presenters, right? That's another reason why I asked them to join, is because they have expertise in this area. So those reflection questions are a start. But you can continue the conversation, right, with having deeper conversations with Amirah and Zeinab. And then also, again, using the internal networks in our sorority, like the Facebook pages and groups. And I think Amanda had asked about suggestions. So I'm going to take this video. We'll post it on our YouTube page and on the Facebook page as a recording, but also kind of put that there on that group so people can add any suggestions, because I do think it really depends on the various industries that you are in. And Ruthie, thank you for that. Yes, some regions have decided to have professional directories, which I think are fantastic. So I want to give Amirah, Zeinab, you have anything else to add before we close up?
No, just that if you have any questions or if you're at the crossroads, just reach out to me. I love that BNS has shared that she was helping people. She generally likes to help people. I'm the same way. That is one of my needs, is being a catalyst. It's one of the things that I value. So if you have questions, just come to me. We'll talk. Don't worry about money or resources. To me, the conversation is important. We're creating space there, and then eventually you can decide for yourself what's best for you. But I want to be able to help. So if you have questions, my email is zainab@zainabkahera.com. Okay, and then also you'll find me there on Facebook. Put my little thoughts in, especially in the networking group. Thank you, Vanessa, for starting that group.
It. Yeah.
That was a huge benefit for us in Data News Eye. And thank you guys. It was nice to see everybody's face.
Awesome seeing you guys, meeting you all. And also you are welcome to listen to our podcast where we talk about all things career and personal growth, which is the KCP or Kahera Conversations podcast. And it is available on Spotify, Apple, and other places where you may listen to podcasts.
On my website as well.
We'll post that in the group too for later on. So thank you all so much for joining us today. I'm going to end our recording here. But
thank you, Margie.
Thank you all so much. Thank you.